It being 9 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. We have had an agenda submitted to us. Any additions or corrections or entertain approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. We have previous minutes from our regular board meeting of February 14th. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? Entertain a motion. So moved. Second. Discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Also have a work group session from the 21st of February. Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. For the discussion, being none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. We have a 9:10 appointment set up, so we can continue on until a little bit after 9. At this point, we have the consent agenda. 3 items are listed on that. Any discussion on that?
Is Tess not here?
She had to come in.
We wanna,
You gonna do public comment first?
oh, excuse me, I forgot public comment. Excuse me, I forgot that. On the screen, we have anybody? Public comment. Thank you, Greg. There being none, we'll. Do we wanna wait for? Tess is available here now. If you have a question on the consent agenda,
Just on the number 1 there, so this is to replace retirement.
Number 1 being the lieutenant's retirement.
no, 6.
Department of Correction.
Department
Oh,
of Corrections.
excuse me, Department of Correction, not a retirement, a resignation. Yes, that's what was confused.
So
The position was a .8. We're asking for a .6 replacement, not a. Currently, the Department of Corrections has 2 positions that are both part-time regarding the Tech 1 positions, technical clerk 1. One was .7, one was .8. The .8 resigned. We're asking for a .6 fill, which would give the department 3 days a week coverage. The .7 position will stay the same. Her schedule is currently Monday, Wednesday of 1 week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday of 1 week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the following week. So for the purpose of background checks for bail hearings and warrant updates and things, this would provide coverage for every day, plus the overlap for getting other matters taken care of. I don't know if we'll be able to find somebody for a .6, but we are going to make every attempt.
did we change the other one's status?
Temporarily to a .8 only until we fill this position.
So that's just temporary?
Yes, sir.
And it's gonna go back to where she was.
Yes,
Did we approve that as temporary? I thought it was permanent.
Well, at the last personnel committee, we had agreed on recommendation from Tess that we should not hire. And we were gonna give the other lady a bump up. So now I guess it's changed.
no, that's the request came from the That's not quite how it's characterized. The request came from the Department of Corrections to make the one position full-time and see if we could get by. That doesn't cover for any leave status, any vacation status, any sick leave status, any time off. So, and plus the employee is not, doesn't want to do that. I mean, it's just, she prefers not to. Of course, she wants to keep her job. She's been with the county for, I believe, 21 years. The proposal that's in front of you would provide for coverage for every day, plus allowing for some time off.
So it's clear that that was just a temporary bump.
I believe so, Commissioner, yes. She's fully aware of it. Renee Patterson is, I've communicated with her, she's aware of it. And I believe I'll have to go back to my prior agenda request. I believe that's how it is, it was put forth to the board during the time.
Well, as
Until
long as that's clear. I'm sure that part of it's clear.
I'll clarify it one more time with them, but yes, it's clear. And in speaking with the employee that's in that position, that is clearly her preference is to maintain her position where it current is. Where it was, I shouldn't say current status.
See, in the agenda request from February 14th, got a Department of Corrections here, it says to change this individual from a 0.7 to a 0.8 FTE effective immediately. While we work with DO supervisors to determine appropriate FTE, so is that cover the fact that it's temporary?
Well, I will clarify that it's temporary, but that was the intention of that moving forward. Because at the time, we weren't sure what percent position we were coming forth with, and we were going to have a considerable lag between the time the employee who left to the time we determined the appropriate FTE moving forward. And they needed a little greater coverage, and in the interim for the 1 day that left us without any coverage, Winona there having Winona assist. But I'm sure
Staff
Winona is not interested in continuing that. On
The staff member we're talking about does not want to stay at that level, wants to back up.
would like.
Is happy at that rate, and then 0.6 person replaces the 0.8, so it's a reduction in overall cost.
Correct, Commissioner.
I don't have anything else. I just, as far as confirming the retirement of Tracy, I'd like to thank him for his little over 21 years of experience with the Sheriff's Department. I wish him luck in his future endeavors. So with that, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carry. It being close to our 9:10, we'll be going into closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 1D. Attorney-client privilege. So can we close everything down? Going into closed
Motion to go close.
motion is.
I'll second that motion.
What's the first one?
You.
And Bob seconds. So we're going to close session at 9:10 a.m. Any further discussion? All in favor of going into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carry. Okay, we finished on the consent part, going on to action items.
Just a sec. So who motioned to come out of closed session?
Okay, there was Greg that was motioned and Burns seconded. 9:30.
Okay, and who was in the closed session?
It would be Tess and Sam and Margaret Skelton.
Okay.
And the board. Okay. Okay, moving on, action item number one, consider accepting Brownsville VFW donation of amount of $185 to Veteran Service Office to use at any veterans needs.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Greg,
I'll
okay,
second.
who's Bob? Discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye.
Alright,
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number two, consider approving peddler license for Scott Allen Gibson. Mr. Gibson is contracted through Scenic Concepts of La Crosse, Wisconsin, to take aerial photos. Currently, what is it? Who they take pictures up to, Don?
Your farm, if you want.
The farm deals?
Yeah.
There we got one of them.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay, yeah, this is peddler's license, like you said, Dewey to take photos through Scenic Concepts in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And he will be coming to, he wanted it through. What do they have down there from through December 31st, so he plans to renew it for each month with the auditor's office until he's finished with the photos.
I'll make a motion to give the contract.
The license, okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? There being none- Oops, excuse me.
when he makes that application, they prove, they have to have proof of insurance and all that.
Proof of insurance, I don't know if I could answer that right now, I could check it out for you for sure with Holly, I know
He
they have to
doesn't
go
have,
to
he's
the
not working for the county.
sheriff's office. I don't think. We,
He's taking the pictures for Scenic Concepts.
Yeah, he's
right?
working
Yeah.
for his own business,
Yeah.
so he isn't doing any work for the county.
I just look at it from the point of view, if he's flying over somebody's farm, has a plane issue and crashes into one of their buildings or something.
Mhm.
Then the FAA
That
gets
would be-
involved.
I know, but we've gotta have insurance.
Yeah.
that would probably be them through the place he works, I imagine. I'm assuming.
So I think the peddler's part is where he approaches the individuals and selling it. The flying part will be a separate issue, but the selling part is what we're proving today. Okay, thank you.
Like I
Okay,
said, the sheriff's office, have to, do a background check and make sure that they're
Background.
approved as well.
yep, strictly for the peddling part, I think.
Mhm.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Alright,
Aye, opposed, say nay. Carried. Number three, consider easement/land purchase for Houston County Airport. Burns and Myrie are in this deal, so go ahead and let us know what's going on here.
Well, last week you guys told me to go offer to buy the 2 acres from him and he turned us down. He wants to sell us all 5 or 6 acres, whatever's in that square. And I guess that's the way it's gonna be.
all or nothing.
And what kind of dollars are involved on the all?
He told me he'd give us that square for $100,000.
That's 5 acres,
I think it's 6.
almost 6.
I think it's only 3, is it, or something like that?
Just 6.
Three around 6, okay. Discussion, folks, what do you think?
A high price for 6 acres. I mean, if it was an open field. Still a high price. For a 6 acre parcel, even if it was all ag. If we were to buy that parcel, FAA would participate. Maybe in the portion that makes sense to the airport. There's about 2.8 acres that have trees and whatnot that are in the flight path. That we could remove. If we remove those trees, we are possibly able to get our instrument landing. Certification back again, so that pilots can land on instrument instead of visual only. But. We'd be paying $100,000 for 6 acres. How much do you think it would take to remove all those trees, the house, the barn and whatnot? I mean, you're gonna have another, what, $50,000 tied up in. I don't know what it cost to clear it, but it cost a fair amount. To get,
Would the FFA pay for any of the clearing, you know?
they would help with the clearing. But
All of it?
not all of it, only in that flight path area.
But we don't know for sure on that either.
And it takes 6 months to get FAA. I mean, you got all the valuations and they would do an appraisal of the property. And if we're paying 100,000 for 6 acres, and they might say it's only worth 80,000, that's all they're gonna participate in. You know, the 2.88 acres at 80, at whatever 80,000 averages. That's their participation, so we're gonna end up footing a larger portion of the bill than 5% for the, you know. Now, if we bought the whole thing, cleared it, we could sell 4 acres to somebody else. We could clear it all off and lease it to somebody to farm it, probably Nick. But, you know, get over 50 years, you get your money back. But is it worth it to have that much cost? It's worth it to get the license, the instrument landing, because it's gonna attract more planes to our airport that wanna call the Houston County Airport home. But it's an expensive buy.
Was that in the 20-year plan to get,
No, it was not.
but to get the
Clear
clearance for the
instrument,
instrument?
if the trees are there, we aren't gonna get it.
But it was, yeah, but it was, so it was never in the 20-year.
It was not in the initial 20-year plan to get it.
I see the benefit of the instrument landing being a very positive point. I'm just concerned with the amount of cost for that positive point. And granted, with the 4 acres could be sold off that we don't need. But would we be able to get even half of that back with farmland prices today? Hard to say.
You know how it works when the county buys something that's worth a hell of a lot. When the county sells it, it's worth absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And keep that in mind with with the community service building out there.
Yeah, I know. But it has some major benefits. But it's a big cost. And he wants to know by tomorrow.
By tomorrow.
Yeah, we got a lot of people want it. The trouble is, if he sells that to somebody else, we will never get another chance at the 2 acres.
That's right.
And whoever
You
buys,
don't know that for sure.
whoever
They might,
buys,
they might be interested in selling off a couple acres. I don't know.
Well, most of the people that are interested want to build where we want to have trees tore out. That's where they
But-
want to put their house.
But they can't put it there because of restrictions from FAA, I don't think.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's already been brought up as an issue.
Brian did say maybe, see, there's all these maybes, maybe we don't buy the land, but we purchase an easement to remove the trees.
Mhm.
I don't think he'll go. for that
No,
either.
that's not likely the case. Brian just brought that up as
Many
an
dollars.
option.
Buyers interested in 4 acres. He's got that much interest.
Well, if we buy the whole thing for 100,000, so we can take down the 2 acres, 2.5 acres of trees. Turn around and sell 4 acres to somebody.
Can they build that for you?
There's an issue there
It's
because
farmland.
it's farmland and it's a high quality land, which we're not supposed to be able to build on at all. They'd have to have hurdles and they'd have to get a variance from the planning and zoning in order to build it.
Board of Adjustment.
The Board of Adjustment.
And we're probably gonna have the same problem if we ever build hangars. Guess we're building a crop ground.
Mhm.
But we're gonna have the same issue. But we're
No.
gonna have-
That first stuff we bought, I thought that was cleared to be cleared and okayed to build for the expansion of the hangars.
For FFA, but not through the county.
Well-
Nick brought that up to me too. He says, well, I can't build a house on a little piece of corn ground down there, but you guys can build your airport bigger on crop ground over here. He says, what's the difference?
I'm thinking he'd be able to get the variance because there's a house there now.
Mhm.
Since there's a house being torn down.
Well, the
building-
difference is that when you own your crop ground, you're allowed to build on a crop ground for your own use.
Yeah.
So that it's not against the law for that. Where it comes into play is if you were to sell off a chunk for someone else that is not involved with that farm to build it. So,
And he could sell a 40 off of there, couldn't he, to his brother-in-law, and then he'd have 40 acres, he could build a house.
yeah, I don't know. There's all kinds of different scenarios.
So then,
We're getting into other scenarios here, but back to the issue is. As much as I am not fond of spending big bucks for that, I feel it's the future of the airport could hinge on if we get that or not, as things are changing. These airports around us, I don't know what Preston's size is or what their deal is. But I know people who want to leave La Crosse because it's just too big.
Yep.
They want something that's more convenient and I think our airport would be close to the big city of La Crosse for people who live there and rent here. I think the advantage of having it is important. The price tag is what,
well, I'm sure we'll sell more fuel, out there, we get more planes coming in.
Well, all along on this 20-year plan, it was emphasized that there's cost share. It's 90% federal and 5% state. And I've gone along with that. It's not costing the county out of pocket as much because it's only 5%. So this here is a different deal. We're buying something out of pocket here.
we might be. Depending upon what the feds say is the value.
Well, the feds will probably give us.
So, but if
90% of the
we agree
2.8
today that
acres.
we're gonna buy it for 100,000, we get a deal. And we have no. I mean, to get FFA to approve any of it, partial of it, they're gonna wanna have to do a
Oh, yeah.
appraisal and all that stuff. I mean.
All
So,
the same studies we did on the other parts.
I mean, we bought that 7 acres for less than 100,000, so. And we didn't get all of our. Cost share on that either because of a technicality.
Well, you're dealing with the FFA or FFA, you don't know what you're gonna end up with.
I mean, I agree with what Dewey said. I mean, it'd be a definite benefit to the airport. For the growth of the airport. For the usability of the airport. When you buy it first and then go to FAA, they're gonna say, well, why should we participate? Because you guys bought it anyways.
It's not good business.
So
But
then,
we need to make a decision because he wants an answer tomorrow. There's no leeway, no negotiating, no.
I went by there yesterday, had 3 different people in there looking at it already. It's not gonna be that very long.
Well, when we first talked about this. My idea was to do a swap. For that 7 we bought, and that, 5 or 6 that he has. But evidently that. You guys didn't wanna do that. Planning, the airport commission.
well, here's the thing about the land that we bought. Right next to the runway. Level. Right elevation for the new hangars and whatnot. So all the taxiways and everything are flat, they can drain to the sides. The buildings are level with the airport runways and whatnot, so everything is on a nice grade. If we swap, now you're buying a piece of property, one, we gotta clear it, two, it's got that big depression in it, cause all the water drains in from that area underneath Highway 76. So there's parts of it that are 10 feet below the runway.
That field. is- that-
Taxiways can only be at a 2% grade
But that field is up at the same. Isn't it?
as the runway. That's flat to the runway, so it's perfect that way. Then it drops down into this depression, so you got
But the drop down is probably nothing that you'd build on because. You want that partial land to clear the trees to make it better approaches, right?
But if you
What
build
I'm
on it,
saying is, I think Bolton Mink could make that work if he really wanted to. but
he had a plan for the hangars and whatnot in that area. But there's a cost for fill in order to get it up to grade, so you only have a 2% grade on the taxiways.
But FAA would participate in all that, correct?
Why would we have FAA if we're just swapping land? Why
Well,
would we have-
it wouldn't be technically a swap, it'd be, we're buying that. With the agreement that we're gonna be selling this. It's not technically a swap, one for one. It'd be a change of ownership. Through legal means.
The word swap means that, hey, we'll give you our land, you take our land. That's one way to look at it. I think what we're meaning, Eric, is that we buy this and we sell this.
Right, with
Okay,
all
alright.
under FAA approval and understanding, right?
Because then all this piece over here, that's 7, 8 acres, you know, we'll sell it to somebody else. That individual's not gonna want it. Selling the buildings.
Well, it would be under the agreement that. We're selling it to the same person we're buying this. from. Well, no, that's what would be the
I
agreement.
understand what you're saying.
We're not gonna say we're,
We'll trade you.
Okay. Well. Lots of discussion. And where are we at?
Greg did raise a good point that if we bought the 6 acres, cleared what we wanted, and then turned around and sold it. The 4 acres. Now, we could sell the whole 6 acres with the condition that that 2 acres that we cleared could only be used for cropland. Yeah, with the
you just said that once the county owns something, it ain't worth nothing. no.
And that's,
Sometimes, yeah.
I'm guessing that we can't sell it for the same amount that we're being asked to pay. Maybe we can, I don't, but I don't think so.
I don't know, I would bring 10,000 for sure, maybe more.
You can look at.
Well, either way you're looking at it, we're doing this out of
Out of pocket.
out of plan here. This has not been part of the 20-year plan. And we're not doing it in order. We don't have the appraisals done or nothing like that.
But should I go to him and ask him if he'll swap us?
No,
No.
I'm not, that's just my opinion.
Well, I agree with you.
I
It's
think
a
the
lot of
land
work.
that we've got is prime. For hangar use. Yep. Perfect, and also you can put in the new weather station and all that. And there's room for additional growth, I mean, there's room for about 5 or 6 more hangars on that property side, you know. I don't like putting it in a hole.
But what if we were to go to them and say, would you consider a swap? Would you wait and hold on before you do anything? It would consider a swap. But unless you're dismissing that altogether.
Personally. We each have our own opinion. My opinion is we don't get rid of the land that we bought from Mr. Barth. Because it really is exceptional for what we need.
That land's worth $20,000 an acre to us up there. I'm not, about what we own.
Honestly, what it's worth. But it's just so much better for the needs of the airport than this.
Well, I mean, for the needs of the airport, it's worth that.
Well, we paid 10,000, right? How much we paying for the 6 acres at 100,000?
You know, it's
You're gonna have, you gotta still clean the trees. Maybe you got some value in the trees you can sell.
It's one of those terms, location, location, location.
$17,000 an acre is what. Too probably.
So. You know, a lot of discussion, a lot of thought, process. It sounds like he's not willing to prolong it.
No, he won't do the two, but he'll do the whole patch. 6 acres or nothing. Do we have any money laying around, Carol?
You can do
We can
Good
do
point,
it,
yeah.
Can do it. Board's decision.
it. Once. Well, just keep in mind, we're gonna be spending money on the west parking lot, the roof.
Yep.
The moving of offices for the space utilization. It all adds up.
You've got a fair number of people that think it's crazy that we have an airport in the first place.
Well, yeah, but that,
There's a
I think it's a good investment in the long run. Too expensive, but in the long run, I feel it's something that will appreciate the value of that airport for the future. If we don't do anything with it, we lose the opportunity of instrument landing, which for a lot of folks would be important. We all know we have inclement weathers out here, you can't always see the blessed airport, but you can surely use an instrument.
I just find it. I guess I don't understand why that wasn't part of the 20-year plan. I thought when we bought that land, that was gonna help enhance the instrument landing, but from what I understand, it's never been in the 20-year plan to have an instrument landing.
Just kind of got thrown at us here lately, just as you go on
The
about.
instrument landing was taken away because of the,
Yeah, I understand when it was taken away, but I thought that in the 20-year plan, it was never discussed to be brought back in.
right, because Urban Barth owned that land and it was never ever gonna be for sale, so it wasn't part of the 20-year.
But is there any issues with the surrounding land around the whole runway for instrument landing, or is that the only spot that's a problem?
That's the only spot that's a problem, because everything else around the airport is restricted on how high. You know, the crop's gonna be growing there, but they're under the elevation requirement. Corn isn't too tall, or beans or whatever. They do not pose an instrument landing issue. Those tall trees on that one side.
But what I'm getting at, in the 20-year plan, it was never a goal to get instrument landing.
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Not since I'm.
But now we're talking about this.
Right. Because the option became available. Person that inherited that land said, we can buy it. And then when we take the trees down, we can apply for and attempt to get the instrument landing. Now that takes 2 to 3 years because of the study by FAA. We can get your instrument landing and permit and whatnot, but if we don't have it, we're not gonna get it.
You know, they're saying a lot of times change and technology changes. Well, a few years ago, when the 20-year plan was designed, the instrument landing was not a priority or necessity perhaps, and the group who was involved at that time didn't see it as a real need as much as it could be now. Things are getting bigger, faster, and so I say times change, and perhaps if we don't do anything, it will not be available to upgrade when we need to or want to.
It's true. And we'll likely get some of that $100,000 back.
Not if we buy it all, they're gonna, we buy it for our own pocket, they're not gonna. I mean, because I wish Brian was here to ask if they can call.
Well, I
mean,
think they'll pay.
Do you think they would do that, Carol?
I think if you updated the plan. That I think.
But I mean, after
Could you-
we've already bought,
Could you approve it pending FAA approval? And how quickly could you find out?
4 to 6 months.
That's a good question.
Ryan,
Donna, say what?
Get Club Ryan, some get home, he wants to get on.
Oh, yeah, he got it.
He's at a meeting, he's at a training session in
But I
Rochester.
told him on this thing.
You got it. Okay, Bob, Scott are going there, Robert.
Maybe put it by the microphone so we can catch what he says.
If he answers. Hey, Brian. I got you on speakerphone. We're talking with regard to that land out there that Nick Holscheid's got. If we buy that for 100,000, will FAA after the fact still participate in a part of it anyways?
Based on what Silas said during our airport commission, said that we go through the process that there's a good chance that they will participate. Based on my experience with federal highway, there's a chance they would not participate. So I really am not very confident to say yes. Silas is more confident than I am.
Sure.
So two different federal agencies, they both have the same federal requirements that they follow, so.
But we could buy the whole 6 acres. It's all out of our pocket, all out of the county's pocket, and potentially do the removal of the trees and then turn around and sell 4 acres off to somebody else.
Yes. Yep, and yeah, their participation will be limited to the area that has benefits to the airport. So into that BFL 20 or maybe the 35 line. So they will participate into that area.
At most, they participate in that 2.8 acres
Correct.
to the 35-foot line.
Yes.
And they would participate in the removal of the trees and whatnot. That we could do, go through the process to remove the trees and whatnot.
Yep, so they should participate in the cost of demolition of the trees that the buildings have down that are impacts to the airport again, the penetration of the airspace.
But we're just making assumptions here. We don't,
I don't know.
we have no agreements from them to do that. They're gonna do this.
How soon would it take to know if they would be willing to purchase?
Question is, how soon would it take for them to participate in the purchase? That's
Yeah.
the question. You hear that,
You hear
Brian?
that, Brian? How long would it take FAA to decide that they're gonna participate in the purchasing of the land?
So usually you need to go through and do the environmental clearance first to CADX, maybe a complex CADX or a study that would need to be done first for if the land's eligible, and what impacts it would have on the environment. Then you need to do an appraisal and an appraisal review that will show the value of the land and what it's worth. And then at that point, then they could get into the negotiations on the price. And then once everything's approved is when they can come back and tell you what they'll participate in. So there's some, negotiations along the way with the landowner potentially. They really don't like to give a whole lot of feedback on what they participate or not until you're further along the process, know what happened on the environmental clearance side. When we spoke with them, they did say that they said there's a large benefit to the airport, so I don't think that they would say that they would not participate, assuming that there's no environmental issues. So environmentally, they'll look at, is there any of those buildings become historic because it's a homestead that's been around for a long time. There's no wetland, but it's a great nesting in a tree or some other type of environmental impact. But so time wise, to go through the full process, it probably would take 9 months. To do something expedited, to get something done without getting the appraisals back and reviewed, we maybe have an answer in 6 months.
So we gotta decide by tomorrow if we're gonna buy it, and it'll take 6 to 9 months to see if the FAA would even participate at all.
Correct.
So it's a gamble. That's what we wanted. Any other questions for Brian?
We're good.
Thank you, Brian. Enjoy your meetings or your
Thank
lessons or whatever you're doing. See you.
In your airport world, it is changing. I mean, with technology. My father's been a pilot now for the last 10, 15 years, and they have to fly what they call under the hood. It's part of their training, et cetera, and they can't come and go. Hence, they don't keep their plane, the club that he belongs to. They have to keep it in the garage where it is. So you're right, Dewey, as far as my experience in the county growing, that airport, if it's gonna grow the surrounding area, you're gonna have to keep up with times. If you don't purchase the land now, will it ever come up for sale? We're kind of under the gun with this 1 day notice. I guess in listening to what you've all said and what I've said, I wrote down a little bit of notes here. And what I wonder is if we did purchase, the county purchased it, if you did sell 4 acres of it, if he has that many people in line, maybe they would be interested in 4 acres. Or as Mr. Burns said there, if an easement would work, do you have our county attorney, et cetera, put an easement on that property, sell the whole property after the tree removal with an easement?
It's another good idea.
Okay, thank you. Good points, Robert, or Bob. Keep two Bob straighter. Any other comment?
Word sweetening.
Yeah, that's good.
Just a comment that the pilots who participate in the airport commission have always indicated that the landing would be good. I think it's strange that it hasn't been addressed in our plan.
They can't do it.
Somehow.
So when
That's why I'm asking, why isn't it in the 20-year plan?
Maybe the costs thereof at the time or the availability wasn't there. Now we have the availability that wasn't there when they developed that plan. How often is that plan upgraded? Is it routinely upgraded or not? We don't know. But I think we've come to a lot of questions. We've had some answers, 6 to 9 months for FAA to get their checkbook out if they do. I think we've heard that there's some big benefit to getting the instrument landing procedure going. Without that land, it's not gonna happen. If that land gets sold to somebody else, would they even be willing to get rid of that building site? Probably not, because that growth of trees is ideal for shade of a new home, So, I think as much as I hate it, and I've said it a couple of times, I think we're at a point that maybe we should. I'm open to other comments.
Well, if we clear the land, we'll have 6 acres of cleared land. We could rent that out back to Nicholas for $200 an acre. And that'd be $1,200. I mean, that ain't a lot of money, but it will make payments.
Or sell,
Yeah,
whichever.
or sell. I mean, I'm open to anything.
Any other thoughts,
We don't buy
comments?
it, we don't have anything.
So it's either a motion to or a motion not. So I think we're at that point. Does that make sense? Okay, what is the motion gonna be? Entertain a motion.
Well, if we don't make a motion, we won't know where we stand.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna make a motion. Based on the potential need for the airport. That we accept and go into the agreement with Mr. Hoshide to acquire the 6 acres for $100,000. And move forward at that. With that plan.
And make application as soon as
Then
possible.
we'll move forward with the FAA and what.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Further discussion
I would ask that after, once the discussion is done, that we vote by roll.
by all means. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Well. I don't like doing business under the gun here, being forced into position. And my feelings all along has been this plan, this 20-year plan, we were gonna do this with. In partnership with FAA and the state. And have participating in costs. What we're doing now is out of the plan. And we're not doing any cost share, so now we're dipping into the levy. We're dipping into the taxpayers' money to do this. Local taxpayer money. So.
Okay.
I'm not saying this wouldn't be a good deal, I'd be more in favor for the swapping of the land. But to do this out of turn, out of plan, without any backup with the FAA or the state. And the cost share of removal of the building site, the trees, we don't know any of that. I don't like it. I don't like that uncertainty.
So noted. Any other comment?
That is a point well taken from the perspective that we don't know. We're spending $100,000. For a parcel that we have additional expenses. To get. Even to make it available for what the FAA is gonna require. Between the trees and the house and whatnot. Trees might have a value, so it might not cost too much to take them down. Somebody else would buy them for the lumber, so that might cover that cost. I don't know if we can get somebody from outside to come and take the house down for salvage materials and not cost too much that way.
I talked to Brian about that. He said the county could come in. Would be a big deal.
We'd have a cost factor.
Well,
for
maintenance call.
It'll have costs. I mean, they would get that for nothing, but it might be a little cheaper if they do it. Yeah. Or you could contact the Amish, they'll come in and take a lot of them buildings down just for the materials.
Just like on the La Crosse, and we had a house that was gutted by Restore La Crosse. So I mean, there's a lot of options, but I guess the question is purchase or not. Any other comment on this issue?
Well, like, if we don't buy it, we're not gonna get our lights or, I mean, that's out the door.
Use for that.
Dipping into the levy is tough to do. We had to do that on township levels and it's never never a very easy decision to make. The only thing on this is we do have some options to get back out of it if we don't. The housing market is crazy. If there is an existing home there now, more than likely you would be able to build another one there with the zoning and loopholes. And I would, if he's got that many people looking at it, as what Greg said, if we decided to backpedal, I think we could and get our money. Most.
Other discussion? Roll call?
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
No,
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes,
Do the paperwork and do what we need to. And let Brian know what the decision was so he can start post haste on the FAA.
Well, I think. We should have Sam contact Nick, do paperwork to do the transaction.
I'll call Nick and have him tell him that him and Sam will be getting together. To draw up the cost.
Very good.
That sound good?
Let's talk a plan.
Let attorney know too.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, consider adopting resolution 23-09 endorsing the efforts of the AMC Community Supervision Work Group and urging the legislature to pass a new funding formula and significant appropriation during the 2023 legislative session. I don't know.
Yes, so Commissioner Brad Anderson from Goodhue County contacted me last Friday and said that he had this has been brought up at AMC meetings, and so I was like not really aware of it, but I talked to Bob and he said, yes, he has been aware, maybe some of the others have heard them discuss this. They just want to have all the counties on board to support AMC. The Community Supervision Work Group and urging the legislature to pass a new funding formula and significant appropriation during the 2023 legislative session. So it's just a resolution and then they sent, there was a that all the counties used. And basically they just wanted support from all the 87 counties. And I think we're the last, it was just us and one other county that hadn't adopted the resolution yet to support AMC for it. So they just asked if we would kindly support them and they needed to get it done really soon. So it's been going on for quite a while, talking about it, and they wanted to, like I said, just get everybody on board.
The additional funding is for probation purposes. Probation.
Probation. Yeah, that they, and you can see by the resolution, it sounds like it's been quite low for quite a while and they want to get it up there, so make it more adequate, I guess, or
Increase the state's share of the cost of probation.
correct.
The percentage that the state pays toward probation costs.
Now that's said in here in this document.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution 23-09.
There a second,
Second.
other discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carry. All right, nothing else under action. Go to discussion. Yes, I'll start it out here. Last week, I was involved in a couple of meetings, ended up being Zoom instead of in person on the Thursday workforce. Zoomed with them and basically needing a lot of training for skills, and that's where if you've been following up at Southeastern Minnesota Technical College, that they're gonna offer some extra incentive and assistance for students going to school for technical trades. They're looking at more help that way. We got into some discussion about skills and needed and how to educate for the job. That was it. Okay. Development retraining. There's some things going on. I also brought to their attention about our loss of people down here. They're on board with that and we'll be coming down to talk to people needing work on that. The next day I was involved with the State Community Health Services Advisory Committee, that shack thing that I got involved with last fall. Anyway, couple of points of interest. The representatives for our region will be Marsha Ward and Mitch Lintz from our neighboring counties. So they're going to represent Region 8 in all of our statewide discussions. Continued investment in infrastructure. Talk about the health disparities. That's going to be in the governor's budget. Mental health, higher suicide rates in greater Minnesota. So they're going to be working on legislation like that. There's one doctor talking for a long. A lot of things happening there. Environmental, like that was it there. I think that's some very essential, but a lot of things. It was a learning experience because up until the last year or so, didn't know what it stood for because Teresa was mainly involved, and I'll be trying to get caught up on training, or education. Of course, last week I a copy of everybody. What I think I'll do for introduction tonight. We're going to try and have 2 sign-up points. One for everybody who was attending, so we have their name and address, and then if you wish to speak, there'll be a separate list so they can be brought up, be recognized. I want to emphasize there's going to be no decision made tonight. There's a public hearing for that. Attorney Hunt has commented looks to be okay. And he will be here for some question if need, but basically we're a listening group is the way I interpret it tonight and not decision time. So I guess that's pretty much my report.
Do we? Can I add to your WDI report?
Go ahead.
Okay, so you just really quick, you mentioned the YST funding, so. The EDA works really closely with Workforce Development Incorporated.
Right.
And we work on the Bluff Country Collaborative together. And Mary Ann Smith is our youth workforce navigator, and she is actually under WDI, they're the fiscal agent. Well, we got the YST grant, and that's gonna run through the BCC. It's really great. It's gonna help students get that training that you mentioned, and also there's administration built into that. So we'll get $30,000 a year to help pay for Mary Ann's salary. So it's wonderful. It's really good for the students. It's really good for the BCC. That YST grant is super competitive. We have tried many, many times to get it. We finally got it this year with Mary Ann's help. It usually goes directly to schools. So it's a big deal, this youth skills training grant. So I just
Okay.
wanted to add that in. That's what they were talking about at that meeting. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I missed. Thank you much. Appreciate that. Hey, Mr. Johnson.
Well,
Report.
getting back to what you were discussing on tonight's meeting. I was just trying to envision on how this should be run. Is someone going to read the language of the whereases and the what's fors on the moratorium?
And good question.
I mean, that'd be,
It's a long,
that's what I envision that would be read out to give an understanding to the public what this meeting is about. And then, Sam could either do it or you could do it.
Okay.
Just so we have set the platform of what we're going to discuss.
because there's a lot of misinformation out there, as we saw on a poster of some sort that.
Yeah.
That's a good point that they ought to know exactly what we're looking at, not guessing.
And you read that first page of the proposed moratorium, it explains to you, everybody what that's about, so.
I'll visit, in fact, I'm gonna be visiting with John after the meeting and then tomorrow I'll probably see Sam yet today.
Will there
Got
be
to go.
copies?
Excuse me,
Will there be extra copies available for people to follow along on, or you don't want to do that?
I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful if there were some copies of that made.
I
even
can
Donna.
make copies and set them back there.
Yep.
The sign in points so they can see it while they're waiting. Good point, thank you. Yep, no, I don't know how many to make though, but if you could,
I'll-
okay, Don's gonna take care of that.
We
Thank
we buy paper and ink in bulk, so.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, I could.
Yeah. Yeah, for tonight's meeting, a good point, thank you. Anything else?
I didn't catch what this is.
Well, they discussed making copies, I believe.
Okay.
I said
Honestly.
worst case scenario, if we run out of copies, I can make more
Okay,
tonight,
all right.
because I will be here just listening it.
Okay.
Even though Don has been, or take the minute.
Okay.
Yeah, just going back to that same subject, because I got a call from WXOW Channel 19.
Thursday.
Yeah. I hesitated taking it, but I took it. But it was, the first question they asked was that we were proposing a ban and becoming a dry county in Houston County. CBDs and edibles and all that stuff. I explained to them, well, it's not a ban, it's a pause, it's a moratorium. To look at. There's no rules, regulations put in place when this law was enacted back in July. It's very vague. The statutes got some points in it and who's doing the testing and who's enforcing it, and that's all up in question. And I think that's why we were having this meeting, and our concern is brought through public health is the packaging of it and the amounts of it in the package, and it's not supposed to look like candy, so it's enticing to children and stuff. And that for me, personally, that's my main concern is the little kids that get a hold of this and get poisoned. So I tried to explain that to Channel 19. I don't know if it came across that big,
Well, they only had like 4 lines of discussion, they didn't
but
really.
they had my name.
Explode it. Yeah. Johnson on the bottom.
I get a call from Greg right away.
I was involved in a meeting at workforce when that call came in. Thank you for taking care of that. Anything else?
Well, then, last Wednesday and Thursday, I had AMC legislative conference that it was all held on Zoom, so everybody was on Zoom because of the weather, so. I'm on the Environmental Services Committee, and we discussed what was coming up there. Brian Martinson is our head guy there, our liaison there for the AMC, and he introduced his talking points where there's been over 2,000 bills introduced. That's a record. And there's concern on AMC's part that there's not getting a deep look at these bills and as they're being passed and the ramifications that it's causing. So they're a little worried about the pace of it and everything and the amount of everything going through. So some of the points that probably is gonna, won't affect us more than anything is the DNR spoke to us, the MPCA spoke to us, and soil and water, Bowser, I should say. There's a plan in place to increase funding county feedlots for $3 million a year for the state. Increase the funding for county ag inspector to 1 million a year by 1 million a year. So, and there's going to be some natural resources block grants out there of 3.4 million a year for wetlands and shoreland stuff. So the other one is about the waste collection, tax collection for solid waste and stuff that was brought up too. Try to get that 100% to go to the counties instead of 30% going into the general fund. So the DNR part, there's a permanent moratorium on deer farms. There's going to be no more new deer farms established because of the CWD problem. There's going to be $6 million for community tree planting for some of these trees that have been died of disease, Dutch elm, all that stuff. So there's an increase for that. Overall, it was pretty well informed. We got to meet with Mr. Miller, talk with him, and shared our concerns along with Fillmore County and Winona County was involved on that call. Yesterday we had our department head meeting and several things discussed. One of the things came up is continuing work from home. Evidently that's still going on, and so I know when the emergency order ended in the county, that was proposed by the board that we all come back to work. But evidently it's still happening here and there, so that was discussed. Maybe send out a reminder of that. The next one was Brian brought up the west parking lot bids were put out, and they got 2 bids back, I believe, or 2 different kind of bids. Was it 269,000 was one bid? That was with done blacktopping, if we were to do some of the work of removal. The other bid was $296,000 by Zinke Construction, and that's if they did it all on the west parking lot project. That'll be coming before the board, I believe, next week. Do it for a decision on that. Martin,
Much work.
I didn't get into details on that, and I'm sure that'll come for when we have ours. Yeah.
Thank you.
Martin brought up a possible public meeting on your no wake zone coming up.
And the marches,
Shoot before it is. Yeah. well,
things have been
and that-
passing through DNR and stuff to my
And
understanding.
that's a public meeting, not a public hearing.
Public hearing.
It is a public hearing. Yeah, okay. Martin was confused. He didn't know for sure on that.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a hearing in La Crest.
Red Center?
No, not the event center, the community building, fire department building, community building.
Other than that, I guess that's the main points of the yesterday's meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, it was brought up to the space utilization, the collaborative working group has sent out emails to the department heads to get their feedback on the 3 options that were proposed. So we'll go from there on that. That's all I got.
Robert,
Well, I attended some of the same meetings as Eric. So the legislative meeting, I'm on the transportation committee, AMC. And there was quite a long conversation with regard to the loss of revenues and, getting the revenue stream back up. Talked about changing the way license plates are using the funds from license plate sales. One of the things they talked about was increasing the cost of license plates in Minnesota. The example they gave, talking about was if you buy a $40,000 car, which is about an average car nowadays, they said the cost to put a license on that car with this recommendation would be up $300 a car, which kind of made everybody hold their breath a little bit because they're high. We pay a lot for car licenses the way it is. And doing that, part of it because gas taxes are going down, because they're anticipating it's going to continue to go down because electric cars are becoming more popular. The governor doesn't want to raise gas taxes, and I agree with that, but there should be some kind, and they talked about increasing cost to buy an electric car. It's a $75 surcharge now that should go up instead of raising the extra license plates in general. They also talked about the increasing of funding, for CASA highways and whatnot. And they talked about changing the way that the sales taxes on car parts and whatnot are. Everything should go into the highway fund instead of 30% going to the general fund. That's the biggest push as far as that's concerned. And then with regard to everything else I listened to is about the same. So I also was at the department head meeting yesterday. He reported on that. We have a finance committee meeting this morning with Dewey and I. Everybody talked about it. Highway, all the projects for maintenance are bid out, wait for the prices. The parking lot bids came in. The difference between the Dunn and the Zinke, that roughly $30,000. The county does all the removals, and then final excavation, rock base and whatnot. I think when Ryan gets here, he's kind of recommending that Zinke's bid be accepted only from the perspective that's the contractor that got the city project, so those projects could be done in conjunction. And he said, it's during the middle of the summer and we aren't going to have a whole lot of people available to do all of this removal and whatnot. And it might be, he's going to put together a price on what it's going to cost us to do the removals with our own forces and what it's going to mean as far as what we aren't going to be getting. Cut back on pulling of the shoulders. Is it going to cut back on rock of the shoulders? Is it going to, what's it going to mean to the county?
Evidently, you had more conversation after our meeting because I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, I called it. That asked. Okay. So everybody gave their reports as far as their expenses being in line, and it's early in the year, so I mean, it's one of the things that was noted by Carolyn was the state auditors have some people that have left, have not got the replacements, so the audits might be a little later in the year than what we're normally used to because they got new people coming in. Is that right, Carol?
pretty much.
pretty much. And then we had kind of a conversation with regard to enterprise and the funding or the purchasing of vehicles, or the acquiring of vehicles. Enterprise over the last year, the highway department's put in 5 applications for vehicles. And after 3 or 4 months, Enterprise cancels because the vehicle can't be bought. They did a little bit of a study. If what was the example used? Through Enterprise, over the 5-year life of the vehicle, you're gonna pay $367,000 some odd dollars. You go to a parking lot or a sales lot, it's just about the same price. And you can drive it off the lot. You don't get cancellations, you don't lose it. If you use the state bid, you're gonna save about roughly $20,000, maybe more, by going through the state bid, but there again, you're gonna wait 3, 5, 6 months to get the pickup.
And that always a chance of grazing that too, like you did with our snowplow.
Yep, that's right. So
The state bid doesn't mean nothing either. That's fluent too.
yeah, it changes. So a little bit of a study going to take place as far as if we get out of enterprise from the highway department and the sheriff's department and just use our pool vehicles for enterprise. How's that gonna change our enterprise contract? Are they gonna raise the rates, fees and whatnot? So we gotta do a little checking on that. Last thing I wanna ask, with regard to tonight's meeting. We got room in this space here for roughly 40 people. We can put another 25 to 30 people in 219 across the hall. I have a little concern about moving them over to the Justice Center, putting them in the basement and having it online over there. They're all coming here to come in and they sign in that they're here. They sign up if they want to speak. If we run out of room, now they got to speak from over there. I'm thinking we use this room and that room, and we don't course around with the basement of the Justice.
I think you're right. Use that one over there, and if you wanna do some speaking, then you get into this room. If you're just here to listen, you can go over into 219.
We have a communication with that room.
I think we had to set it up.
He
Donna,
talked to me this morning
Okay.
and said he could set that up. And I mean, worst case scenario, if that fails too, we could then go over.
We have the back room here too.
Yeah,
that's good statement, so. Yeah, I like that idea that they're in the building and the accessibility. I mean, it's a public hearing and we want to have it available. We don't want to be saying we're discriminating and sending them over to the Justice Center. You know, we want to have it available, and I agree that maybe we should, I'll do some more discussion with Tess, or who should monitor that over there, that room.
Well, maybe John or somebody from Public Health could monitor that room.
Because John is gonna have staff here, he commented this morning, and say, we're gonna have 2 sign-ins, one is gonna sign in to be here, so we know who's been in the building. And then if you wish to speak, you'll sign up on this one so that we can address it
I think Andy can set it up where you'll be able to see that whole room and then,
back and forth.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, anything else, Robert?
Nope, that'll do it for me. Thank
Bob?
I had a short week as far as meeting goes. So it's gonna be pretty short this week. We already covered our DNR meeting in the no wake zone coming up, so that'll be interesting. Tonight will be interesting.
Very good. Eric,
Adjourn.
or Greg,
I guess I had a meeting last Thursday morning with the AMC on 101 government. I guess what they were mostly talking about there was the homeless, trying to find housing for the homeless. And then they're coming up with some new grants for assistance on rent, because they're losing their food stamps now. A bunch of people are, so they're gonna come out with some new grants to help with some of the rent assistance. And then they got a couple more grants for down payments on houses for young couples. And then they talked about the cannabis, the THC. The proposed right now is an 8% sales tax on it if it gets legalized. And sounds like the counties can put in some of their own ordinances and stuff. And,
it's being proposed.
Yeah.
It will have a dual registry, so the state will register them and the county can register them, but we have no authority on any of it. We can't deny anybody.
So we can put in ordinances, they said, on how many shops we want in the county, and what tax we want to put on it, or what the license fee is.
They're trying to get that in the
They're
language.
trying to get
It's
that.
not in there
This is
yet.
all kind of proposed, everything that I'm telling you, it's nothing in stone. Okay, and they're trying to get 2% of that 8% back to the counties. But I don't know how that's gonna work.
Now this,
And neither do they.
No, they don't have a clue either, I don't think what they're doing up there.
is that rent assistance grant, is that already passed or is that part of the legislation?
It's supposed to be getting past this next round here.
Okay,
But it's in legislation.
still in legislation, it's not, I voted down as a grant, but it's
It
still
sounds like them are gonna go through, goes through the housing.
those ones that you talked. Thank you. Anything else?
I guess that's all I got for right now, except tonight.
Okay,
I just got one more thought on this thing tonight.
gotcha.
What is, I know this is a public hearing to listen, I understand that, but if we have someone come up here and approach and they give us their thoughts, are we allowed just to ask point questions about if we want to learn something? 'Cause that's what we're here to do, is learn what their concerns are, or what their business is, or whatever. Are we going to, I know Sam wanted to make sure we were not into I don't want to be in a back and forth debate. I just want to know if we should be allowed, would be allowed to ask a question for clarification of something.
I don't see any reason why not, if there's something to clarify.
Yep.
Like I say, we will be able to answer a lot of questions, this is just good information, but Robert.
So you're gonna give them 3 minutes to talk.
Yep.
If you ask a question, does that
Well,
give them an extension? of-
and I think we could be floating on that 3 minutes.
Yeah, I
Don't you
mean,
agree? I
I
mean,
agree, I mean, that's gonna, I'll be looking at that clock and I'll say, well, I've got 30 seconds.
I mean, you're gonna get a gist of how many people want to speak.
Yeah.
When they sign in, so we can go from there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Anybody want to speak? when
we
they-
just don't know how long it's gonna be or how many, it appears to be a lot of interest from the,
I think we should call Bobby over in Fillmore County. Theirs is going on right now. It started at 10. And see how much input and interest they had in there. Look here,
I agree.
call Bobby and see how it went for them.
I already got, Jessica's gonna email me. So,
Okay. We're all on the same.
oh, you already got that?
well, she's going, after the meeting, she's gonna let me know.
Might not have any
Oh, okay,
during the day.
Say, commissioners,
go ahead, but John,
so I've got Jordan over at that meeting right now. What I've heard from her so far is that they have standing room only there. So pretty busy. As far as the tone of the comments and such, I don't know, but I'll just say that pretty large turnout for the Fillmore County one.
okay,
Ours will be too.
Is Fillmore County gonna make a decision today on the moratorium or no?
No,
I don't think so.
I think we had that 2-week deal that we had to.
well, that was for tonight,
Right.
but
Technically, Fillmore County, if they wanted to, could make a decision today
Right.
because their public hearing is simply a part of their regular meeting,
Good point.
but I didn't know. if
Randy
they
told
had-
me they weren't going to.
Okay,
It'd be the next week or the
Okay.
whatever, or 2 weeks, who knows?
I'll give them some time to think about it.
Good point.
We haven't set and decide when ours to act on it, but
Any other points from the commissioners?
Bob, you asked yesterday about the animal cap unit.
Yeah.
I read that article and I looked on their agenda and it's on their agenda today. The county board is gonna act on that recommendation. It wasn't passed yet.
Let's get past today, right?
It's being acted on today. I don't know.
You want to go 3,000 to 4,000, correct?
Okay. Anything else? Okay, public comment, any public comment? There being none, it's 11 AM. Motion to adjourn. So, is there a second? I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I think I could second, Wednesday.